Guys, what's a fact that many people don't know but really should know in 2021? I'll start. I actually wasn't aware of this myself until just about 3 years ago, but according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the largest association of nutritionists in the world, they've clearly stated that a vegan diet is helpful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention of certain chronic diseases. These diets are also appropriate for all stages of life cycle, and that these diets are environmentally sustainable because they use fewer resources and cause much less environmental damage. Despite this being public knowledge, I still get comments all the time saying that we need meat and eggs, or dairy even, to survive. Unless you think you know more than these nutritionists, I really wouldn't be saying that we need meat anymore. It's unfortunate that this isn't just common knowledge, but it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. And
now we're going to look at the herbivores. I've divided them in two groups. What I call the vulnerable herbivores, those are the ones that are often preyed upon by typical carnivores. Then we'll talk about the herbivores that are so big and powerful they are completely invulnerable to, well, not completely, but mostly invulnerable to predation. Well, again, these animals are designed for foraging. They can walk very long distances at very low energy costs, so they have very straight limbs, not the bent joints that you see in the carnivores. And as a result, these animals are so well designed for standing, many of them can actually sleep standing up. And what this means is that as they're walking around looking for their food, they're not expending a lot of energy because it's their skeleton that's resisting gravity, not their muscles. They tend to be active throughout the day. When the carnivores are asleep, they often lived in large multifamily social groups. Their limbs, as I said, are straight so that they can stand with a minimal expenditure of energy. And whereas we saw that the carnivores had skinny limbs, well, in the evolutionary arms race, their limbs are even skinnier and lighter so that they can actually outrun the carnivores. That's why the healthy animals can always outrun carnivores. It's the unhealthy ones that get caught for the most part. They have what's called an unguligrade stance. Now, we remember the carnivores had a digitigrade stance, meaning they were on their toes. These animals are literally on the tips of their toes like a ballerina on point. And they also have even smaller feet, having lost multiple toes. Most of the ungulates only have 2 toes. Some, like horses, only have 1. And that, again, allows them to run much faster. Again, standing on the tips of the toes means longer stride length, faster speed. I've covered this. Their nails, instead of being sharp claws, are flat and blunt, helps them dig up things. And many of these herbivores have color vision, and they're usually active during the day. Their top speed, when they're healthy, is 45 to 50 miles an hour, which allows them to outrun most carnivores. Then you get to the invulnerable herbivores, which are so large and powerful, they're generally immune to predation. Their top speed, therefore, since they don't really have to run away from anybody, it's like maybe about 25 miles an hour. They too are daytime foragers. They have very heavy, straight, pillar-like limbs, because again, since they don't need to run away from anyone, they don't need these little skinny limbs to allow them to run fast. So they're these really thick, heavy limbs that allow them to stand up and not require a lot of support. They have a largely hairless skin. Nails are flat and blunt. And they have large, heavy feet, which have a flat foot-like stance. Like humans, elephants live in are long-lived social mammals living in large family groups. Terrestrial herbivorous mammals tend to live much longer than carnivores, and I think that has to do with the fact that their diets are higher in antioxidants and other things that help offset the ravages of aging. And these animals are a living testament to the adequacy of plant protein. I just want to make this point. We all know that the first thing that you get asked when you tell someone you're going plant-based, oh my God, where are you going to get your protein? The largest, strongest animals on this planet are all vegans or herbivores. All protein is made by plants. Say that with me. All protein is made by plants. No animal is able to take nitrogen out of the air and incorporate it into an amino acid. Only plants can do that. So any protein you get from an animal source is secondhand. It's secondhand plant protein. Let's cut out the middleman and go directly to the source. Okay, this is just a cartoon showing, drawing a scale showing the differences in limb structure. You can see in the carnivore, the cat, the bent limbs, in the elephant, the very straight limbs. All right, let's talk about the energy cost of locomotion. For quadrupeds, you see that when you graph walking speed versus energy utilization, you get a straight line. Faster they walk, the more energy they use. It's very different for humans. When you graph walking speed in humans versus energy expenditure over a wide range of speeds, of walking speeds, we actually use less energy than would be predicted for an animal our size. So, in other words, we are the consummate foragers. Many people have debated why humans ultimately adopted an upright stance. It's because it made us extremely efficient foragers. And why is that? Well, in a quadruped, the center of mass is always located squarely between the bases of support. So that means every time that animal has to take a step, it has to lift up its center of mass, move it forward. That requires energy. It's not that way for us. When we take a step and our leg gets thrown out, your center of mass actually falls outside of your body. You start to fall forward. In other words, gravity is now moving you forward. Gravity is doing part of the work of helping you move. And if you don't catch yourself in a nicely timed fashion, you're going to fall on your face. That's why stubbing your toe makes you look so ridiculous. It's because our walking is this finely tuned ballet of appropriately catching ourselves before we fall on our face. And anything that interrupts that will make us look very goofy. So, again, human beings, consummate foragers. We're more efficient walkers than anybody else. Let's just look at human body plans. Now, you remember in the carnivores, they had this streamlined torpedo shape. They could run very fast and very efficiently. All of their vulnerable parts of their body were located in the rear of the animal, so it was protected from injury. Look at us. Number one, we have the widest part of our body presented to the wind so that it's non-aerodynamic. We have the most vulnerable parts of our anatomy right up there to get injured. We clearly are not designed to chase things down and kill it. We have this unprotected exposed anatomy where our bodies are flattened, non-aerodynamic. We have a very lithe, flexible neck that, as I found out in my car accident, can be easily injured. We have very straight, heavy, pillar-like legs, not the skinny legs of an animal that's designed to run fast. We have large, heavy, flexible feet, which helps us stand up. But that means that when we try to run, we got to lift these big old heavy things up and try to run, and that requires a lot of energy, and that's why we're lousy runners. We have largely hairless skin. Our nails are flat and blunt, and lifestyle factors make humans relatively invulnerable to predation. That is, we live in social groups, we're active during the daytime, and we take our butts to bed at night when the predators are active. If there were, and that's why, unlike a lot of animals, you notice how if you shine a light into your dog or cat's eyes, it shines, it reflects. That's because carnivores have a layer, a reflective layer, a mirror-like layer at the back of their eyes that helps to amplify low light levels. It's called the tapetum. That helps them see well at night so they can sneak up on sleeping animals. We don't have that. If there was ever a human ancestor that had it, he or she got eaten and didn't pass it on to the rest of us. Our slow speed and poor endurance, most useful for escaping stinging insects. What do I mean by that? Well, the fastest humans run, even Olympic sprinters, run somewhere between 19 to 22 miles an hour. And humans can only keep that speed up for about 150 meters. Even in the 200-meter dash, you will notice that after 150 meters, all of the runners are starting to slow down because they can't keep up that speed. That is clearly not fast enough, nor is that the endurance that would allow you to chase down anything. But what it does allow you to do is escape bees and wasps. Because it turns out that most bees and wasps will only chase an animal for about a 200-meter radius around their hive, and their top speed is about 19 to 20 miles an hour. So basically, our ability to run helps us escape insects when we steal their honey and try to get away from them. All right, and then when you look at women, it becomes even more ridiculous to talk about human beings as hunters, because it's crystal clear that a gravid woman is in no condition to hunt. Well, yeah, that's true. And so the anthropologist said, well, you know, what the women did was they waited at the door of the cave while the men went out to hunt. You know, Mother Nature is no fool. She knows that we guys are completely undependable, and she would not stake the existence of human females on men. The female of every species is always able to procure the diet she needs to live, carry a pregnancy, and raise her young. Every single species. There is no species on Earth where the female of that species is unable to procure the diet she needs to live, carry a pregnancy, or feed her young. That is just ridiculous to postulate that. And what is even more interesting is that the long gestation period of humans is typical of large herbivores. Human fetal development also suggests that being herbivores is a necessary prerequisite for human brain development. I had to take that part out of this lecture because it's just not enough time. But as with all other large herbivores, single births are the rule, and we have very large infants relative to the mother's body weight, and when the babies are born, their eyes are open, which is a gauge of brain development. So here's a chart showing you carnivores, at the top, and length of gestation, and some large body herbivores. Now, I use terrestrial mammals that were about 40 kilograms or greater than 40 kilograms of body weight, because obviously it'd be ridiculous to look at rabbits or mice, but it would be equally ridiculous to look at elephants and rhinos. So try to get animals that were roughly in the same body mass as us. And what you see is, again, the human gestation period of 40 weeks is typical for large-bodied herbivores. The carnivores all have their babies at a very early stage, and that's because a massively gravid female cannot hunt effectively. She would risk injuring herself and or her developing fetus. These contrasts become even more stark when you look at the neonate's body weight as a percentage of the mother's body weight. Again, carnivores have tiny little babies, and they typically have litters, whereas in the herbivores, they have large babies that are a much bigger percentage of the mother's body weight, and they tend to have either one or two babies. Carnivore infants are born with their eyes closed because effectively they complete their development outside the womb. And just a word on milk composition. When you look at the milks of carnivores, this is divided by total solids, percent fat, percent protein, and lactose. You see that the carnivores have a lot more solids, a higher percentage of fat, and a much higher percentage of protein. Why? Because their babies grow very, very rapidly. You only need high protein milk if your baby's growing rapidly. Down at the bottom, I put cows and humans to show you why you should not feed your baby cow's milk. And what you see, again, typically carnivore milk contains more than 1.5 to 2 times more solids than herbivore milk. They have 2 to 4 times the protein and up to 10 times the amount of fat. What I want to show you about cow's milk is that cow's milk contains almost 3 times as much protein as human milk. Why? Because calves grow much faster than human babies. Bovine proteins are qualitatively very different from human proteins, and also the fat that's in cow's milk. Cow's milk has more fat than human milk. Actually, the fat is roughly the same. The protein is different. But the lactulose is very interesting. You notice that humans have more lactose than cow's milk. Lactose is milk sugar. Why should that be? That's because a human infant's brain, relative to its body size, is much bigger than a calf's brain. And the brain uses only glucose for its metabolism. So our babies need more sugar, but they don't need all that protein And even though the percentage of fat is roughly equivalent, it's very different kinds of fat. The fat in cow's milk is highly saturated, which is why you can make butter and ice cream from it, but you cannot milk a woman and make butter and ice cream from her milk.
Hey, can you turn my headphones up, please? Right there? Thank you, Crip. Hey, don't think
You trap it with the 30 like Steph Curry in the backseat. Ooh, you want the answer, better ask me. I'm so sick with the flow. Ain't no backseat. Ain't nothing funny like a bad dream. I'm stumbling off the drink like I'm old. They got a bad knee.
this video got me stuck,
Ooh,
nigga.
this chain too exclusive. Spitting in the booth like I'm toothless. Put up in the coop and this